Welcome, everyone, to the Dad Cartel podcast. I'm excited to bring you conversations with great dads from across the country. Please follow the Dad Cartel on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok if you found value in this episode. And please share it with another dad to help create a great dad culture. If you're interested in participating as a guest, send me an email at prouddad@dadcartel.com or shoot me a DM on any of the social channels I just mentioned. Today, I'm joined by a guest that I've been interacting with quite a bit, man. I appreciate all the support. Khalil Wilson. He is also starting a dad type of content type of platform called the Baby Daddy Association, which, by the way, is hilarious. I thought it was a great name, and it's the more awareness we can bring to all the different things that dads go through, the better, I find. So appreciate what you're doing, man, and appreciate what it seems like you're starting, and wanted to unpack that a bit. So tell me about yourself and what you have going on and what you're working on.
Um, like you said, my name is Khalil Wilson. I am the president of the Baby Daddy Association. I have two daughters. Um, they are the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I don't think a lot of fathers get a lot of recognition for um, the struggles we go through, just in terms of how hard it is to actually be a good father and how much it actually takes out of you. And I just wanted to do my part. Just wanted to do my part to bring awareness to that, shine a little light on it, and celebrate good dads. I know a lot of men personally, and just men I see in general, throughout everyday life that I see with their kids, and they don't really get the type of recognition and appreciation they should for it. And I just felt like it wasn't right. I don't
Yeah.
think society appreciates. Uh, Society is so used to men not being in their kids' life, and like
Yeah.
like your platform, a lot of fatherlessness going on in the world. That when they do see men who take care of their kid and or kids, they don't appreciate them enough. And I just wanted to shed some light on it, do my part.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's like what would be considered a great dad is almost like a unicorn, right? I talk about it with my wife all the time, where when men are out with their kids, they always get these kind of looks from strangers, particularly I'd say like the older generation. They'll look at us and say, "Oh wow, like you're such a great dad because you're taking care of your kid on your own." It's like that's it's my kid too, right? Like it's not,
Yeah,
it's not this extra thing that I'm going above and beyond. It's just a responsibility that I feel like I already have. So, if I'm at the store with my daughter, I'll get these kind of looks of like, "Wow, you're doing this by yourself? Like you know how to do this?" And it's like, "Yeah, I think I'm fine." Like, I'm not gonna replace mom, but I'm still very capable.
definitely.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So tell me about your dad origin story. You said you have two daughters. Man, that's awesome. I have a daughter myself, and I used to be the guy who said I want the heir to my throne and the heir to my name and all this type of thing, right? I want a son, and hopefully I just have a bunch of boys, or I have a boy first or whatever, right? And tell my wife now, man, I can't imagine it any other way. I'm even of the opinion, if I have nothing but daughters, I'd be completely happy. So tell me about that for yourself.
Um, yeah, man, I have two daughters. Um, I definitely want to start in five, my own basketball team of boys, and part of me still wants it. Part of me doesn't want it anymore because I feel like boys would just be more of a headache. But sorry about that. I My dad origin story is I'm the youngest of five boys. Um, so I kind of got, I don't want to say the bad end of the stick, but by the time my dad had me, his my parents' relationship was over. So I always talk to my mother about it. About um, I have no recollection of my dad being in the home with me. Um, waking up to my dad, going to sleep with my dad, dad making breakfast for me on Saturday mornings, stuff like that. So
Yeah.
fast forward to now, it's good. I won't say it's great, but I just spoke to someone about this the other day. Uh, Although growing up, you know, you might not have been there, been the best dad in the world. I'm grown now. I'm 27, so I don't expect him to do anything that he missed out on when I was younger. Like I don't expect him to call me up and say, "Hey, let's go to Disneyland," But
Yeah.
the love and energy and everything that he pours into his grandkids uh, is enough for me. It's enough of a apology, if you will.
Yeah.
So like I said, I don't expect anything from him. We have a good relationship. We talk on the phone. I call him, I see him. He loves to talk to his grandkids. He loves to see them. He really enjoys them. The energy he brings with him, the love, the positivity, just the joy he has when he sees his granddaughters. Um,
Yeah.
like I said, it's enough for me, man. It's a win. So I'll take it.
Yeah.
And the best thing I can do is just make sure that I don't make the same mistakes he made. Regardless of why they were made. That was a different point in time in life, and I don't know why they were made. I don't care to know why they were made. All I know was I got the short end of the stick, and not just me, all my older siblings. We all did. But like I
Yeah.
said, I just made it a point in my life that when I had kids, I would never do the same to them.
Yeah, that's a great outlook, man. It's a very healthy way to deal with something like that, right? And there's so many different ways that you can go and you can say, screw this guy, I'm never going to talk to him again, and hold this kind of resentment and be just this bitter person. And you see people like, I'm sure you've seen it. I know I've seen it where people walk around with this like 1,000-pound weight on their shoulders because they said my life is so hard and I had all these different adversities I had to go through, and we all do, right, and in different ways. And I'd say like that's more of a hindrance, and that's more of a really difficult thing to carry with you, right? And rather than just saying, you know what, let me try to, as hard as it is, I've heard a really good way of looking at this. I'll mention in a bit, but it's so much easier to just move on from that and say, I'm going to use my energy more productively. I'm just going to, try to have some empathy for this person, even though they may not deserve it, right? And say, um, I can't put myself in their shoes and what they were going through, and maybe I don't really even have to, but I'm just going to choose to move on. And it sounds like you're doing that, and that's I'm sure your dad appreciates that too, right? Saying like, at least you let me be in my kid's life. Maybe I can't make it better with between us, but I can at least have a relationship with my grandkids and make that better. So I had a similar situation, my dad too, and my brother did the same thing, kind of that you're going through with your dad. And this sense, my dad was in and out of our lives. He was in and out of prison, and just like not the best father. He was there even when he was there, he wasn't the greatest dad. And but my brother chose to let him have some kind of relationship with my nephew before my dad passed away.
Oh wow,
And I always admired that about my brother, that he just decided, what, all the bullshit between us and my dad that's one thing, but that's my son hasn't experienced any of that, so I'm going to give him the opportunity to experience what it's like to meet his grandfather. So that's, man, I applaud that.
definitely. I definitely think kids having their grandparents in their life, the ones that are able.
Hey, sorry, I think I lost you for a bit. Uh, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now. Yeah, I think it got cut off when I think when you had just started saying kids having their grandparents in their lives.
Yeah, I just think it's just an advantage, just a lot of extra support that if your grandparents, if the kids' grandparents are in their life, then like I said, it's just a step up. It's just an extra support system and more help, more
Yeah.
teaching tools, more wisdom, and things that you can learn from.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. Just that wisdom of old age, right? I always thought that of, what is it gonna be like to get older? And you're younger than me, but like when I was your age, I can confidently say, man, I was an idiot. Like I was
Uh,
27, I just had no idea what I was doing, and just kind of meandering through life and still trying to get my shit together. And as the years kind of rolled on, I think I had a little more confidence. And I think that's why I waited so long to have kids, because in my 20s I just didn't feel ready. I didn't feel like I was financially set up right. I didn't feel like I was mentally right. I didn't find the right partner. And you know
right,
it all kind of started coming together like right around like the 28, 29 for me, right around that age. But it's those late 20s that I feel like are so kind of formative. But thinking through of like what 50-year-old and 60-year-old has gone through, right? And it's just like,
yeah,
why not tap into that wisdom, right? And it's so beneficial. And my wife's grandparents are still luckily all around, and so she's got access to all four of them. And man, it's such a benefit, and even I benefit from it because they give us such great advice. And when it comes to, being, like, things like faith, or when it comes to just life experiences, business, financial things, it's such a big advantage, man. And just having grandparents around, and then you add another layer of saying, I have my parents around, both of them, right? And I think that's what both of us are trying to talk about. It's such a big advantage.
no, definitely. I was one of those guys to fortunate enough to have grandparents on both sides, mom and dad.
Mhm,
So like I said, I'm the youngest of five, so I had to grow up fast, and
mhm,
it was a gift and a curse at times. It's more so a gift now, but
mhm,
like I said, having grandparents on both sides, they're saying they have different teachings and different stories, but at the end of the day, it all means the same thing. You know,
mhm.
they give you the same wisdom, they're giving you the same free game, and it just depends on what you do with it and how you um hopefully they can take it and just go through life with it.
Yeah, it's a great point. Yeah, I talked about an example earlier that I thought was really great. I posted a video on it recently about Mike Tyson talking about, someone interviewed him and asked him about his relationship with his biological dad. And man, the way he talked about just forgiving him and moving on, and having empathy for him was amazing. If you guys haven't seen that video, just check it out. But it was so powerful to me, of that the power of forgiveness, of just moving on and saying, I'm gonna choose to forgive someone. I don't know exactly what they went through, and I'm not here to like judge anyone. And I don't think any of us are really in a place to judge anyone. So when hearing it come from him and knowing his background story of all the adversity he had gone through, and then finding another dad role model in his trainer Customato, and all the things. And then we all kind of know the story of Mike Tyson after Cuss died, and just kind of how he unraveled after that, and kind of found his way back. And it's amazing, man. I love hearing those stories and seeing people, having gone through it myself, and a lot of my friends going through all these different adversities. I love hearing those stories of, how did you get through it? How did you get through that fire, right? And how did you move on? And those same people are the first ones to tell you, I don't want my kids ever going through that, right? I want them to know what adversity is like, but it's going to be much more controlled adversity, and it's not going to be, what I went through. So, what do you think about that? And what it sounds like you had five, having five siblings in itself, that's its own kind of unique challenge. What are some ways that you're preventing your kids from going through what you went through?
Um, I'm preventing my girls from going through a lot of things I went through, just in general, and um, being in their life first and foremost. Like I said, being
Mhm.
present and
Yeah.
active in their life, very supportive of them, and doing things to better myself as a parent, as a father.
Mhm.
Excuse me, doing things to better myself as a father first,
Mhm.
because um, what I instill in them is what people will see in me. You know,
Yeah.
what you teach your kids and how you discipline them, and structure. And my daughter's about to be 7, so
Mhm.
she's getting to that age where a lot of the things she'll do over the next couple years will mold her going into her teens. Now I know I'm kind
Yeah.
of jumping from 7 to 14 to 16 and things like that, but I mean, I feel that it's not really much of a difference, you know.
Yeah.
She's turning 7. Next thing you know, she'll be 10 and 12 and 14, and the things that I'm teaching her now in this window, um, like I said, will mold her into who she is as a preteen. But in terms of adversity, I think the only adversity I would like my kids to go through is just small barriers, you know, things that you'll have to figure out for yourself because at some point in time, actually, a lot of times in life, you won't have mom or dad there, or
Yeah.
say anybody in general who will help you or guide you through things or talk to you about. A lot of times, you will have to do things yourself. So,
Yeah.
um, and I think it's just problem solving in a nutshell, you
Yeah.
know. And I'm trying to do that now with my oldest daughter. A lot of the
Mhm.
things that she struggles with and she gets kind of flustered and frustrated with, whatever it may be, if it's something on her iPad or if it's some homework or something, it's just like, yo, you got to kind of work through it, figure it out. You know,
Yeah.
don't. As much as I want you to, don't run to dad at the first sight of trouble because, like I
Yeah.
said, there are going to be times in life where dad won't be there. Dad won't be able to help you, or dad won't be able to come to the rescue as much as I want to. I can't be in two places at one time. So I want to instill
Mhm.
the confidence in them and the ability to problem solve and process things slowly but surely. Handle it with
Mhm.
maturity, and don't do a lot of things with emotion. You know, think with your
Yeah.
head. Think with your head and not your heart, and just calm down, relax, slow everything down, and just process things. You know,
Mhm.
that's the real adversity that I want my kids to go through. Is just not getting frustrated easily.
Yeah. That's a great point, man. Teaching kids how to think critically and how to process things as they come, right? Because like you mentioned, we can't be everywhere at once. And I think if nothing else, that to me is probably the most valuable thing we can teach kids, right? Because
Right.
we all know life's difficult and we all know that it's not going to get easy at any point, and there's different stages of hard, right? It's like that kind of like that saying, like uh the hardest thing you've experienced is the hardest thing you've experienced, right? Like it's always going to be the most difficult thing to you as a person, but having those values and having the kind of the guidelines of how to deal with those difficult situations is so important, and it serves kids so well because you can see the people that were never taught that, right? And they were insulated. I had a best friend that his mom, like, she was one of the greatest parents I've ever seen, but in the sense also one of probably the worst parents I had seen, in the sense that she tried to insulate him so much from the outside world because she knew life was hard and their family situation was pretty difficult. So she tried to overcompensate, right? And
Mhm.
she overcompensated by making things as easy as possible for her son, and she thought she was doing the right thing, and she did, right? She truthfully
Right.
like did, even though everyone told her it wasn't. And it was to the detriment of my friend because I don't know what he's up to anymore. It's been a while since we connected, but last I checked, he didn't have a career going on. He didn't really have much going on for himself because everything was basically handed to him, even though he wasn't like didn't really come from money. But
Mhm.
he didn't get to feel that struggle of, man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay my light bill, or I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay my cell phone bill, or I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get a car or where I'm gonna live, like, none of all those things that, it's not the best way to learn, but for me, it was, and I've met so many people that say the same thing, but you have to kind of figure things out on your own, and things can't be handed to you, because then you just expect it to happen, right? And it's just you expect someone else to do it for you, but that's not how life works, right? No matter what, at some point, you're gonna come across this junction in life where you have to figure things out on your own, and you have to do it the hard way, right? And you're going to have to learn how to struggle through things. And I don't think that's taught enough to kids. whether it's from parents or from relatives or definitely not even in school anymore. So it's refreshing to hear that you're teaching that and emphasizing that, man.
Yeah, definitely in today's crazy world, man, that those struggles and that adversity can come from anywhere. It can come
Yeah,
from the simplest of things. But yeah, just like I said, like you touching on your reference to your boy, just things like that. Kids like that, when they do get older and they hit that wall, they don't all they know is that mommy's gonna come save the day or daddy's gonna come
yeah.
save the day. And like
Mhm.
you said, it may not always be like that.
Mm.
There are going to be times in life where you have to figure it out on your own. And
Mhm.
like I said, as much as I don't want to admit it, it is going to happen sooner or later. My daughter knows that she can come to dad for just about anything, but
Yeah.
as they get older, they are going to have to learn it. And I, I'm scared. I'm scared of when that time comes, but we're gonna have to face it either way. So either she's
Yeah.
gonna sink or swim, and I'm just trying to do my best to make sure they swim.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for me, you know what one thing I think about is like what would happen if I'm not there, right? And
Right.
it's more so even like say I passed away, right? I can get hit by a truck tomorrow or even later today or whatever it is, right? And you know, how is my daughter going to be set up for the rest of her life, at least in the things that I would teach her, right? There's probably
Mhm.
I'm building, I guess, enough content now that she could actually look back and like this is what my dad actually believed or whatever it was, right? Like his some of his philosophies and ideologies, right? But I think back and I reflect at almost every day and say like, you know, my daughter's only 4 months right now or close to five, but you
Mhm.
know, what am I gonna do to prepare her for life as she starts, you know, coming to an age where she can understand things and you know, what is it if I can only teach her a handful of things that I feel like would set her up for life at least like from a thought perspective and from a character perspective, right? And to me, it's something that if nothing else, I want a couple of these things for her to learn, right? And being self-sufficient and being a problem solver. If nothing else, I think is going to be the thing that I want her to learn, right? And obviously things like respect and hard work and resiliency. But I think that all kind of ties together in that critical thinking, right? When you start thinking critically, all of that kind of takes care of itself. I feel like when you're taught, I think the most valuable thing I ever learned from college and any type of education that I had, most of it my own education outside of like institutions, is how to think critically. And it's teaching myself how to think critically, right? And I had to find ways to do that, right? Whether it was podcasts or interviews or TEDx talks or TED talks and all these different kind of platforms. It's finding people that had a unique perspective on how to process information and how to deal with issues and problems in the most efficient way. That to me was the most beneficial thing. It wasn't the you know the history 101 or whatever it was, right? All these different courses I took, that's not what helped me out in life, right? I tell people, you know, I do marketing professionally for a living, and everyone's like, "Did
Mhm.
you learn that in college?" And it's like, technically I did, but not really. Most of it was on the job, and most of it was like me finding things out. It's really learning how to absorb information and finding the right people and having the humility to do that. That to me is how you really get through life and how you really succeed in life. At least that's what's worked for me.
Right. We as men, as fathers, we as people in general, we constantly having to adapt. Like I said, in this world is so fucking crazy. Oh, sorry, excuse
Yeah,
my language. This world is so crazy. You'll never know
you're
what
good.
you'll have to adapt to. So
Yeah.
I'm just hoping to instill that in my girls and working. I'm just working towards it every day.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think about the current landscape of like dads? We talked about it a little bit, and I know I talk about it quite a bit, but it's something that I see like on a consistent basis that's really frustrating where you know you check any TV show or anything online and it's always about you know dads are these aloof you know whatever guys that just kind of like get by and they put clothes on backwards on kids and they forget to put shoes on them and you know they're running out the door and the kid's hair is all crazy. Like what do you think about that weird perception and what's your take on that?
Um, I just think it's one of those perspectives that us as fathers and as men have to change. I think it's up to us. I don't think anybody else is going to give us the benefit of the doubt and
Mhm,
come out and say that fathers can be good parents too. It's
mhm.
just that stigma that, like you said, we're just as clueless as our kids are. So I just think it's a tall task because for so long that's what it has been. And to its defense, it has been true for the most part.
Mhm.
A lot of men aren't active in their kids' lives. They aren't supportive. They aren't, actual good dads. So
Mhm.
it's not any knock on anybody or it's not a knock on society. But now moving forward, I think it's it's up to guys like you and me and a lot of these other um, good dads and on these other platforms that they just want to change the narrative. So sick of hearing about it, so sick of seeing about it because the guys I know, my friends and people, that I've come across in life, they're awesome dads, great dads.
Yeah,
And like I said before, they don't really get the acknowledgement they deserve from
yeah,
society. But every chance I get and I see a good father doing what he needs to do, regardless of his past or his beliefs or any of that stuff, um, the least I will do is acknowledge him being a good father. So I guess I just think it's on us. Um, we just have to keep doing what we're doing, and
mhm.
it'll start to everything else will fall into play. We just have to get more fathers on board, and we just have to get more fathers uh, active because as much as a lot of us don't want to admit it, social media is so powerful that if we were to get more guys like you and me to open
Yeah.
up and just share with the world um, how good of a father they are, then I think slowly but surely it will change. It won't change overnight, but it definitely will
Yeah.
change.
Yeah, it's having these constant conversations, right? And making it something that always tries to pop up, right? I see things on this probably might be the old guy in me, but like I'm on TikTok and I'll see all these like videos of like to me the dumbest shit that I've ever seen, right? Well, then has like millions of views and like all this like kind of engagement. And I'm like, I get people have to be entertained. I definitely appreciate that. I appreciate being entertained, but it feels like a lot of serious kind of issues are the ones that are kind of pushed to the side, and there's really
Mm.
not as much space for that kind of thing. But I have to catch myself as well and say, these topics are probably not as comfortable for people to talk about, right? Acknowledging the fact that fatherlessness is a real issue is a difficult thing for a lot of people to struggle with, that they struggle with, right? Because
Mm.
they probably experienced it firsthand, or maybe you're a guy who you're not the best dad, right? And it's not the most comfortable thing for you to see,
Right.
but
Right.
I think putting it at the forefront and having the conversation as much as we can and with as many people as possible, right? I think that's kind of to your point. It's what's going to get us over this kind of hump and over this bridge us over into the place that we need to get to, right? And that's where we make being a great dad a mainstream thing, right? Where it's not this like we're not unicorns, and I think that's changed a lot more with our generation, right? Where we're proud to say we're great dads. Where maybe in the past, I can't say definitively, but I'm thinking like my dad's generation and maybe even a generation after that. I feel like it was kind of seen as like it's in the Mexican culture for sure of it's a feminine thing for the whoever raises the kid is it's the mother, right? The mother
Right.
always like nurtures and raises the kid. The dad shows up to like tell him don't do that, or pass me a tool, or here, come to work with me and learn how to like
Yeah.
build a house, like my dad was a carpenter, that type of thing, right? And it's such a weird thing where it's like it was seen as almost like a feminine thing to nurture your kids and to play with your kids and to spend time with your kids. And I think we're the first kind of real generation to break that and say like that's ridiculous, right? Like spending time with your kids is the most, to me, it's the most masculine thing you can do, because you made that kid, right? And you're nurturing your next generation, you know, I frankly, I don't give a fuck what what anyone thinks, right? And
Sure,
that's
man.
kind of the other part. I think we give less of a shit what anyone thinks. And, you know, to me, we have to get to that point of like saying, you know, I don't give a shit. This is a really important thing. And I take it as, you know, I take my career very, very seriously. I take this really seriously with Dad Cartel. But, you know, what I take and my relationship with my wife as well,
Mhm.
but I also take fatherhood very seriously, and it needs to be that. I think that's where men need to get to, where we take it as like this is one of my like most important roles in life. And until we get to that point where, you know, even young men coming up see that there are other men out there that say, you know, being a father, being a dad, being a great dad is probably, if not the most important thing you can do in life. And that's how I see it. My legacy is going to be my daughter. It's not going to be what I do. All this stuff, it's great. I'm trying to, you know, create more awareness, but I think the real change I'm going to create is raising great kids that are going to be 10 times, hopefully 100 times better than I am.
No, definitely. I think to touch on what you said, I think a lot of the stuff on the internet is foolishness, and it's just
Mhm,
like you said, it's entertainment, it's drama,
mhm,
but um, once again, like I said, just a lot of these different platforms and the 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 guys like me and you who are trying to shed light and shine light on a real, actual like a issue.
mhm,
I think it's gonna it'll break through sooner than later. But until
mhm.
it does, we're gonna keep on pushing. And you definitely right about um, the older generation, like uh, bringing your kid up as a man was something that was almost frowned upon. It was just like if you back in those days and that time, if you were a man, um, actively in your kid's life, helping raise them, feed them, house them, teaching them, you know, things of that nature, um, you were looked at as some kind of like weirdo or something like that.
Yeah.
And then fast forward to now, um, I think I think about outside of work, I want to say about 80% of my time is spent with my kids, you know,
Yeah.
along with friends and family and all that nature. I see I see my kids more than I see anybody else. So
Mhm.
it's just like in today's day, like you said, we don't really give two fucks about anybody that thinks it's feminine or it's more so of a soft kind of thing to be with your kids so much or to do so much with your kids or to not. Because at the end of the day, like you said, that's your legacy. You know, you
Yeah.
you're that's who's here when you're gone. Your kids, they'll
Mhm.
have your name, whether it's your first name or your last name, they'll have your name. They'll continue on and to make new memories and to keep your name alive. You know, if you were if you were a shitbag parent while you were alive, nobody's gonna want to continue that legacy. Nobody's gonna
Yeah.
want to talk about you. Nobody's gonna bring you up. You're not even your own kids. They're not gonna they're not gonna want to speak on you. They're not gonna want to bring you up. They're not gonna want to hang pictures in their house and show their kids that this was grandpa and he was such a great guy and he was a stand-up guy. They're gonna want to erase the memory of their mom or dad out of their memory. And I don't know if there's a worse feeling than that, that your kids don't want to represent you. Your kids don't want to be seen with you. They don't want to talk about you, or they don't have anything good to say about you. You know.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I just think that today's society, to the people who don't understand or they're stuck in that time frame, that era where the stigma was that men should be out saving the world and not home with their kids or taking their kids to the park. I don't think I don't think there's anything more that I would rather do than not care less about how they think. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In today's world, once again, it's so crazy that, like you said, I could walk out in the street right now and get hit by a train. But at the end of the day, I feel like men need to really just do what is best for your kids because we're grown.
Yeah.
We're grown. We're adults. Like I said, we're not kids anymore. Now it's your turn. If you had a terrible upbringing, if you had a rough upbringing or a bad rough upbringing, or however you want to put it, and this is one of my biggest things when it comes to fatherhood, is just changing the narrative. I know so
Mhm.
many men who had a rough upbringing, whether it be mom, dad, or just life in general. You know, the cards weren't in their favor a lot. And my biggest thing is that, okay, now that you're grown and you're out of that, and you're older and you may have kids, whether you're married, single, divorced, you name it, change the narrative that you went through. Don't let your kids go through that same thing of not seeing dad 2, 3 days, 2, 3 months, 2, 3 years, not talking to
Yeah.
dad, not having memories that they can recollect on with dad taking us to the park every Sunday, or us, going and doing things with your kids. Build your own memories, change your own narrative.
Yeah.
This is Build your own traditions and things like that that you do with your kids, because
Mhm.
that that adolescent part of your life is over, and there's nothing you
Right.
can do to get it back. So why would you want your kids to go through the same thing? And I know a lot of people may say, "Oh, well, it's trauma. It's
Mhm.
trauma. It's just the stuff that I went through that has molded me into that." But you can you can play both sides of the fence with that. You have people who
Mhm.
went through you have people who, as adolescents, walk through hell, and
Mhm.
they grew up to be this great person. Or you
Mhm.
have people who walk through hell, and now that they're older, they're still walking. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that is being rubbed off on their children, on their offspring. So it's like, it's just, and I understand it's not easy, but you have to show them a
Yeah.
better way of life. You don't want them going through the same thing you went through.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's taking all that and finding the strength, man, to move past all those traumas, right? And if for no one else, for your kids, because you don't want to keep perpetuating the same things, right? And I look at it as you can look at it a million different ways, but one perspective to look at that I think is helpful is saying, I'm not gonna give that any more power, right? Like that already happened, kind of to your point. But I'm not gonna feed it, right? It's kind of like anything that
Right.
you feed is gonna get nurtured, right? And that includes negativity. If you choose to dwell on negativity, then you're just gonna keep it going. And to me, it's like we all have only a finite amount of resources, especially when it comes to time and to like focus. And I'd rather choose to put that into something positive, right? And to your point, that's one of the coolest things for me as a dad, even now. Like, my daughter's only 4 months old, but I'm able to do all these things that I'm like, I don't think my parents probably ever did this, right? Like taking my kids to or taking my daughter to like a farmer's market or something like that, right? Like these things that I already have kind of planned in my head of like, we're gonna go to a pumpkin patch and we're gonna do all these things. We're gonna take you to go see Santa and all these different things later in the year. I can't recall, at least maybe there was a time when maybe once or twice it happened, and maybe there's a picture somewhere, but at least in my childhood where that happened, right? It was very kind of linear for what we did. We went to the family's house, Mexican parties where all the adults got drunk, and that's what I remember, right? Playing with
But
my cousins, and there's some good memories there for sure, but all these
yeah,
kind of like textbook kind of like parenting things or kid scenarios of going to like certain events and things like that. I missed out on a lot of those, right? But rather than dwell on that and basically complain to my mom all the time about why didn't you do that or why didn't you do this or whatever it is, I choose to let that go and say I'm gonna just make that right in the sense of my daughter's gonna get to go through all of that and I get to see her experience that. And for me, that's plenty, man. That to me, that's plenty of that's me righting the wrong in my own kind of head. And I don't know if others choose to see it that way, but for me, that's how I kind of look at it. Of anything that I missed out on, I just want my daughter to go to be able to experience it.
no, for sure, man, for sure. Um, like I said, it's just definitely. I'm grown now. We're grown men. I don't want my daddy to come pick me up and take me to Disneyland. You know, I'm changing the narrative in my own life, and
Mhm.
you know, just building a new legacy.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some things that your daughters are involved with? Are they involved in sports or anything like that?
My oldest daughter, she is starting. She was supposed to start last year, but starting this year, she will be into. I'm putting her into gymnastics.
Oh, cool.
Oh, my connection. Can you hear me? I know my connection's kind of spotty right now.
Yeah, I think you're good right now.
Oh yeah. I said I wanted to put her in last year, but I missed the sign up date. So I'm putting her in gymnastics. My youngest daughter turns 1 in October. So
Okay.
um, she still figuring it out, just going through
Yeah.
life without a care in the world. So, but my oldest daughter, um, she did karate. I think for I think it was a small program, like an after school program. I think it was
Yeah.
about 2 months. So, and it was in the
Nice.
wintertime. So she did, she missed a good portion of it, but she enjoyed it.
Mhm.
She's she's a bit of a roughneck. So she likes all the rough house, and then she's the first one to
Nice.
want to play fight, and but she's starting to kind of grow out of that and do more
Mhm.
girly things. So should I say, she likes
Yeah.
dresses now, she likes her nails painted, she likes
Yeah.
makeup and stuff like that. So I
Yeah.
think I think from here on out, she's starting to, really come into her girly girl. And she's very athletic. Her body type is
Mhm.
very athletic. I played sports all growing up. I played football in college for a little bit. So her body
Yeah.
type is very athletic, and starting to see that. Well, not starting to see that, but seeing that makes me think that um, to put her in something that is, because she's not. I don't want to say she's not a team sport kind of person, but I think
Mhm.
that gymnastics, because it's only you. You're a part of a team and a group, but when you're on the mat or the beam or whatever, should I say,
Yeah.
it's only you up there at that time. You don't have to really depend on teammates to help you. So, and I think that's another
Yeah.
thing that can kind of help her with adversity. A solo sport, you have nobody to
Yeah.
blame and nobody to congratulate but yourself. So if you don't do
Yeah.
this, it's your fault. If you do this, it's your fault. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think gymnastics will be really really good for her. I'm looking forward
Yeah.
to it.
That's awesome, man. That's powerful. I definitely want my daughter to be in gymnastics too. And I'm I train Brazilian jiu-jitsu and I've been training for about 6 years. So my daughter's definitely going to do that from a self-defense perspective.
Mhm.
But I love what you said about the solo sports, right? There's a lot of great things you can learn from team sports. I
Definitely.
personally didn't do many team sports growing up. That's kind of a regret I have. I think I would have done a little bit more.
Right.
But those solo sports, you learn so much. Like I think of when I compete, to your point of I have no one to blame for that loss or that win. The win I can share with my coaches and different people that help
Mhm.
me kind of learn the skills. But that loss, it always comes down to me because
Totally on me.
I was taught the right techniques. I was taught the right ways to train, but the performance, it comes down to what I did, right? And if I lost, I always like to say, take your wins and losses like a man, same type of thing, right? If you win,
Mhm.
then just be respectable and process that in the right way. If you lose, definitely the same thing, right? You want to handle that with grace, as much as grace as possible. But I think that's really important. Those moments when you're out there by yourself, whatever type of solo sport that you do, and being able to get through all those adversities and being able to process that's a great skill and a great experience for kids, I think, to learn. And gymnastics, like you mentioned, that's probably one of the best ways to learn that's such a difficult sport, and there's so many different kind of aspects to it. But I think that's why it's resonating more and more with parents and you know, I think that's why more kids are getting involved in it.
No, definitely. I would like for her to be involved in team sports, of course, maybe soccer, some basketball, volleyball, whatever she's interested in. Whatever she's interested
Mhm,
in, I'm for. But I think at the age she's at, I think that the solo sports to start out with
mhm,
will definitely transition to team sports, because you understand that
mhm.
you have to hold your weight. You have to do your part. There's a team
Yeah,
sport as to a solo sport. You have to do your part. When you're solo,
Mhm.
it's just you. All you have to worry about
Yeah.
is you. And if you don't do the things that are supposed to be done, you won't get the outcome. Whereas as a team sport, it doesn't it won't necessarily always be you. You will have to be a
Yeah.
teammate. You will have to learn to work with people and be in the same space as people and just learn to get along with people. And
Mhm.
as of right now, I don't want to say she's not ready for it because she definitely does still have a little bit of an attitude.
Mhm.
But I just think going into her first sport or her first activity, that gymnastics would definitely suit her pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a great sport, and there's a famous MMA fighter, GSP George St. Pierre, that talks about it all the time. And they're like, if you can go back and do one martial art, he's considered one of the greatest martial artists of all time.
Mhm.
Um, what would you start with? And he says it's not martial arts that I'd even start with. It would be gymnastics, right? Gymnastics gives you such good coordination, balance, strength,
Flexibility, right?
the mental aspects of it. It's just so beneficial and it translates to every sport you think about. You said you played football, right? Think about the balance and the strength and the core strength and agility and all these different things that are required for football. I
Mhm.
think in jujitsu, same type of thing, right? Like the strength, the balance, the understanding of body weight, different things like that. It all translates, and it's one of those things that for whatever reason I feel like it is popular in the U.S., but it's probably not as popular as it really should be, and it's probably growing, I would say. And there's obviously some stuff that's happened in that world that probably took it a couple steps back. But it's such a great sport, I think,
Mhm.
for kids, and I'm glad to see that it's becoming more adopted. um you know what what uh what are some of the lessons that you think, has she started it yet, or what do you think are some of the
No,
big takeaways that she'll take when she starts it?
the sign up for it, I believe, is in the fall. But I
Oh,
think
cool.
that a lot of because she had, like I said, she was signed up for karate, but due to
Mhm.
just inclement weather and missing school days, snow days, she wasn't allowed. She wasn't there a lot, you know. So I
Mhm.
think the karate would have been good for her if she was able to go more. But
Mhm.
I think that the gymnastics will teach her that to more so just to focus in on something, to listen, to learn, to take things as they're given to you, and like we said before, just process it. Step back for a second, take what the coach or the instructor, whoever is teaching you something or trying to teach you something, just take what they're saying and relax, slow down, and process it. Everything doesn't always have to be a fast paced thing. When you're learning something completely new from somebody who you do not know, it makes it just that much harder. It adds more to the plate. There's more weight on your shoulders. There's more weight on your shoulders, and I think that that's one of the biggest things that it'll teach a person is mom and dad. You know, they may not have they may not necessarily have the same teaching tools that dad uses when he teaches you something,
Yeah.
or they might not have the same patience dad has, because at the end of the day, they don't have to. They're not your
Yeah.
mommy. They're not your daddy. They're not going to have the
Mhm.
same patience with you. So you're going to learn how to You're going to have to learn how to take that and process it and understand that this is this is like the start of how the world works, right? You're,
Yeah.
when you get out in that world, everybody's not going to be your friend. Everybody's not going to be mommy or daddy. Everybody, a lot of people and a lot of things, they're not going to give you the benefit of the doubt. They don't really care
Yeah.
who you are or what you are. They don't really care, what your circumstances are or anything. They're gonna they're gonna put you're gonna be tested in the world, and I feel like the gymnastics or just any type of sport at a young age is a very mild test to that, because of course
Yeah.
they're still kids, but it's definitely the start of it.
Yeah, it helps get their feet wet, right? Yeah, that's a great point.
Right, right. Definitely.
What would you tell some young dads, especially young men, right, coming up, maybe not dads yet, but young men, on what fatherhood is like and why it's important, right? And why it's, to me, it's one of the most important things we can do as men, is if not the most important, to me, actually it is. Um, how would you describe fatherhood to young men, and why do you think that men should pursue fatherhood?
Um, Me myself, I had my daughter when I was 21, which is, I don't think it's that young, but a lot of people do think it's young. Oppo- uh, Opposed to as to guys or men who are having kids when they're 18, 19, some as even young as 17 and 16. But I think that one thing I would tell them is that do your absolute best to change the narrative that you went through, whether it was good, bad, in between, whatever it was. Having your own kids gives you that opportunity. It gives you that chance. You know, if you did something, if you were raised a certain way, or something happened to you while you were growing up, or whatever the case may be, you have the opportunity now to do the right thing and to 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 raise your own kids and instill in them which you either maybe weren't instilled or you learned later in life. You have now the chance to instill that in your kids. And
Mhm,
a lot of men, a good percentage of men, a lot of our stories are the same. Grew up without a dad,
mhm.
whether he was in and out of jail, relationship failed with mom, um, just he might have had his own problems going through in life, and whether he may have passed away, whatever the case may be,
Mhm.
you can now change that narrative, you know. And I think that would be
Yeah,
my biggest message because uh, a lot of men, that's what they're that's what them being absent. Shit, that's what them being absent. That's what it's based off of. Things that they went through when they were growing up. Oh well, my
yeah,
dad was never around, so I don't really necessarily know how to be a dad. But you can change that
yeah.
though, because
Mhm.
although your father wasn't around, and once again, now you have the opportunity to be the one to change the narrative and say, you know what, I'm not going to do what was done to me to my kid. I'm going to make
Yeah,
it my duty to be a good dad. Whatever I got to go through, if I got to go to counseling, if I got to read a book on it, if I got to YouTube it, Google it, whatever the
yeah,
case may be, if I got to lose sleep, stay up nights and don't eat. So, whatever circumstances that you have to go through to make sure that your child doesn't go through the same thing you went through, I think that would be my biggest message is just to change the
yeah.
narrative of dad not being in the home.
Yeah, I love that, man. It's again, I think everyone's baseline is a lot different, right? You mentioned, you had your first daughter at 21 and you felt ready and you felt like that was a good time, and everyone's going to feel differently about that, right? Some people will feel ready at 21, some will feel ready at 25, some, I don't know if you should go much younger, like 18, 16, like that. That's probably too young, I would say. But anything, whenever you feel ready, that's totally up to the person, right? And once you do feel ready, or
Mhm.
even ready or not, right, I think you're really finding those resources, and trying to really educate yourself and find people that can help you on that path, right? There's a lot of guys like us are trying to help in that sense of talking about what it's like to be a dad and some of the things like we go through as dads. There's all these different resources online on YouTube and different places that you can find too. And I've talked to a couple different guests that have said that, how did you learn to be a dad? I'll ask them, and then they'll say, honestly, like YouTube, and finding like different interviews of dads and things like that, or asking my neighbor, or talking to a family friend, or whatever it
Mhm.
was, or if their dad wasn't around. There's so many different ways we can learn. And to your point, I think it's really just kind of having the humility to say, I don't know this, and I don't feel confident in this. So I'm gonna buy a book. I'm going to, watch a interview, watch a lecture, whatever it is. We just have to make that attempt. and it doesn't have to be perfect. And I don't think, you can attest to this as much as I can. I never feel at the end of the day like I'm a perfect dad. There's
Hmm.
something I recently started doing. I got it off of Rob Dyrdek, where the guy from Ridiculousness, and he actually is like has a
Right.
really good business podcast, um, where he talks about day grading, and he like literally grades himself on different categories, and it gives himself 0 through 10. And I started doing it. I've been doing it for about a week now, and it's so powerful, man. Where one of my categories that I grade myself on is being a father, and taking that time every day at the end of the day to say, how did I do? And I see those scores, and I'm happy to say this, the past week I've been doing it, it's high, right? But I'll see those days where it fluctuates, or at least I feel like there's some fluctuations of like, what could I have done better? I think just making that attempt, man, whether it's every day or whenever you do it, reflecting and saying, did I do the best that I possibly could? Um, and
Hmm.
if you're going to become a dad, saying, am I doing the most I can possibly do to prepare myself for becoming a dad? That I think that effort is a lot of the battle, right? Because a lot of the other things you'll figure out, and especially if you know how to think critically, which we kind of talked about before, you'll fill those gaps in. But
Hmm.
that honest attempt to being a better man and being a better dad, that goes such a long way.
No, definitely. I think, well, me personally, I definitely do give myself a lot of credit on being a good dad. And from the outside looking in, I do give myself a lot of credit on being a good dad, and I'll tell myself uh, throughout the day in and day in and day out, that I'm a good dad. But realistically, um, when you kind of when I step back and kind of look at it again and think about it, I'll definitely give myself some constructive criticism, whether it be the slightest bit of things, or you know, if if it's something small. I definitely do kind of give myself a lot of constructive criticism to touch on the point you made about grading yourself. Um, I don't do it as I think I definitely do it, but I don't do it as what's the word I'm looking for? I don't realize I'm doing it when I do it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it may come at the worst times, the most random times. I may be driving or be at a stoplight or something, and I just kind of recollect, like, I should have did that differently, or maybe I should have
Mhm.
did this, or when I called my daughter this morning, I should have greeted her and said good morning, or just something small, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But now that you mention it, I definitely do give myself a lot of constructive criticism when I least thinking about it.
Yeah. I think it's important, and it helps, it helps us improve, right? If we talk about,
Hmm.
as human beings, and especially as men, there's a lot of different things that we face, and a lot of different challenges that we face. And to me, I'm always thinking, how can I improve? And most of that improvement comes from learning from our mistakes, I think, or learning from the mistakes of others, right? I think a lot of the biggest life lessons I learned were from the mistakes of others, and saying,
Hmm.
I saw this guy's life fall apart because, he whatever, he couldn't stop cheating on his wife or whatever it was, right? Different things, like this guy couldn't stop abusing drugs or alcohol or whatever it was. Those lessons I then internalize and say, that's one less thing that I have to think about, because it's like I know not to do that, right? And also, like, there's mistakes that we make on a daily basis, whether they don't have to be big mistakes, right? They can be small things, like you kind of mentioned, like maybe I should have said hi, or I didn't say good morning. I just said hi, right? Saying, you know
Hmm.
what, I'm going to make it a point now to say good morning every day, and say, how do you
Right.
feel today? Just asking simple questions like that, right? Those small things compound over time, and I feel like that leads us to be better men and better fathers, and I think that's what we're all after, right? Like, kind of to your point earlier, it was a point that I really wanted to bring back up. I only try to keep people around me and men around me that are great dads. And if you're a dad, like, that's the type of person I want to be around, right? These people that care about their
Absolutely.
kids, and these people that actually want to spend time with their kids. Those are the people I want to surround myself with. I don't want to surround myself with some guy who just wants to be at the bars all day and things like that. Like, I've lived that life, and I've experienced different things, and I'm not at that stage of my life. And you still see it sometimes with men that they don't want to grow up, right? And they don't want to, they're dads already and they have responsibilities, but they just want to kind of live that life and live this kind of, I'm still focused on those things type of thing. But I want to be around the men that want to be better for their kids. And that's how I feel like I improve also. So, to your point, I love what you're doing, man. I love how you talk about, fatherhood. And I feel like I'm super excited to see what you do with your platform as well. So, if you want to talk a little bit about that and what you have, any plans that you have for the Baby Daddy Association, and maybe how any of us can help.
Just to touch on your point real quick about being surrounded by other men who are doing the same thing you're doing in terms of being a father. Um,
Yeah.
that is so important because you may you may or may not see what other dads can bring to the table, like this conversation we're having now. A lot of
Yeah.
things that me and you are going to pick off, and just other men in general who may see this, or they may see whatever from my platform or yours. Things that, and I know for myself personally, there have been days I've spent hours on just social media and watching podcasts of other men, other fathers, ones who are older than me, and they say things or talk about things that I can pick up on.
Mhm.
And like I said, I don't want to be around a guy who just wants to fuck off all day. I don't want to be around a guy
Yeah.
who doesn't prioritize his kids. I don't. Up here, we call it man time. I'm from Maryland.
Mhm.
We call it man time. So
Mhm.
eh, if you ain't on man time, then and man time is just doing things that you're supposed to be doing, handling your
Yeah.
responsibility, whether it's going to work or spending time with your kids or whatever the case may be that you're handling your responsibility. We call it man time. So if if
Yeah.
if any of my friends or any of my brothers or anybody that I consider a close person to me that has kids and they aren't on man time, I'm very vocal about it. If I don't,
It's awesome.
if I talk to some of my friends and we haven't spoken for a couple of weeks or whatever, one of the first things I ask them is, "Oh, where's your kid? Where's your son? Where's your daughter? How are they?"
Yeah.
Just to see what their response will be, just to see if they're still on that same man time that they're supposed to be. Because if you ain't taking care of your kids, bro, respectfully, I can't fuck with you. Because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
I said so many of us were brought up in homes where dad wasn't around, or whatever the case may be. We
Mhm.
supposed to be working on changing that narrative, bro. And if
Yeah.
you're not doing that, then I'm not forcing you to do it. But it's just if you're not doing
Mhm.
that, I can't associate with you. I don't want to
Yeah.
sound cliche, but I really don't think that I could be uh, not. I don't want to say not vocal, but I can't hold my tongue with a guy who I know isn't on man time and not taking care of his kids.
Yeah.
But just my platform, like I said, I just want to focus on celebrating good dads and helping men understand the dynamic of what changing the narrative can do. You know,
Yeah.
whether it be one dad, one dad a day, a month, a year, the more that we get out here and showcase what we're doing as fathers, as men, it will start to catch fire. I really believe and truly believe that,
Yeah.
because the stigma, like we said, for so long has been that men who take care of their kids are uniforms. So if we were to all
Mhm.
together as a collective and show the world that, hey, that was then, this is now. We take care of our fucking kids, bro. Simple as that.
Yeah.
We're not just we're not ATMs. We don't, just send
Mhm.
money every month, every week, whatever. We do things with our kids. We showcase our kids. We're teaching our kids. We're doing things that real fathers are supposed to do. And I think that's one of the
Yeah.
biggest things that I want to showcase on my platform. I want to I want to encourage fathers who are doing the who are on man time. I want to encourage them to continue to do that. And fathers, young fathers or new fathers, or even fathers who don't know how to be a father. I want to do as much as I can and help encourage them as much as possible, and just get them to understand that it's not easy. It's not
Yeah.
it's not a walk in the park. Being a dad or being a parent in general, it's not a walk in the park. But it's as hard as it is. It's very, very, very rewarding. It's very rewarding,
Yeah.
and you'll start to see the things. You'll start to see you being a good father, the outcome it brings out of your kids. And
Yeah.
me personally, I don't think there's any other thing that's more rewarding than the light, that the glow that comes from your kids when dad picks them up from school, or dad takes them to school,
Mhm.
or they go to Disneyland with dad or mom. Just there's nothing more
Yeah.
rewarding. So I think that that's one of the biggest things that I want to showcase on my platform, is men who are being good fathers, but they're just not getting the recognition for it, and
Yeah.
men who are struggling with it, but they're doing their best to, to do it. They're doing their best to
Yeah.
be a good
Yeah. I love that, man. I think it's kind of to your point earlier. We as men and as dads need to hold each other accountable, right? And
man.
especially, if you have this close circle of great dads, or that circle can keep getting bigger, right? That's how the way I look at it. I'm trying to every single guest that I've had, man, on this podcast, I'm very confident, even though I haven't met them in person, just from the conversations we've had, that they're really good dads, and they're great dads. The way they talk about their kids, the way they're you can't fake that, right? When your eyes shine and you just kind of radiate this energy of excitement
Right.
when you talk about your kids. And it's starting there and building this kind of network, and make it really make it more of a mainstream thing to talk about these things, right? Like, to your point. And I'm excited to be able to just create more of this, and more dialogue, and more of these conversations, because it's really important. And it's important to hold each other accountable and say, hey, you're not, like, to your friends, to whoever's around you, whatever dad is around you, and say, hey, are you actually trying to be a good dad? Are you, like, what are you doing? Like, what are you actually doing in life? Like, what is it that are you prioritizing your kids? Why are you fucking off, right? When it seems like, your wife, or your ex-wife, whatever it is, whoever it is, the other side of that coin, it seems like they're the ones doing the majority of the lifting. Are you doing your part, right? And
Right.
that's how we combat this mainstream thing of dads are just aloof, and they're not actually involved, and they don't really do anything, right? It's like we have a responsibility to step up, and not live up to those bullshit kind of narratives, and really step up. And then we have that other obligation of highlighting the ones who are crushing it, right? That's what I'm trying to do here. Of here are some great dads. Here's some good examples for you guys to see. And we're not perfect. None of us are perfect, and we're all still
Right.
learning, and we're all evolving. But that's why we're having these conversations, so that we can get better, and we do have a better baseline, and so that the next generation of dads understand what it's like, even more than we do. So, man, I'm excited that there's someone else out there talking about this, man. I really look forward to having more of these conversations with you, and really appreciate you taking the time. And I already picked up a lot of great things from you as well.
Definitely. Just 2 points to touch on something you said. We're when we talk about men who aren't having the same type of mindset and narrative that uh men like me and you have on fatherhood, and they may be having some struggles, like I touched on earlier, maybe past trauma, it may be, like a mental thing. We're not our first reaction isn't to bash them, because
Hmm.
they're already getting enough of that from
Yeah.
uh family members, friends, social media, just society in general. They're already getting our first reaction is to try to help them.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like these isn't is important, because with fatherhood, it may not be necessarily their fault, when you just don't want to take care of your kids, it may be something you actually genuinely struggling with. And and to take baby steps leading up to it is better than nothing, you know. Um
Yeah.
I used to be real hard on it about, because it's not that hard, just take care of your kids and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. But I've recently, slowly but surely, started to learn and understand. And me being a man, in general, I'm a father, but I'm also a man. So me being a man also, it's kind of like I started to kind of, creep over to the other side of the fence just to see what that conversation is about, and to really more so encourage men, you know,
Hmm.
more so encouragement. Yo, be a good father. Do this. Take
Yeah.
baby steps. Be in your kid's life. Whether you have to, there may be a lot of unfortunate things you don't want to have to do, but you will
Hmm.
have to do them for your kids. And like I said, a lot of
Yeah.
guys who aren't taking care of their kids as as and podcasts may be, but there
Hmm.
are men who definitely struggle with it, because a lot of men, they may, you know, their reasoning may actually have some self doubt, some self something that they lack that they weren't given, or that they didn't get growing up, or they didn't develop getting older. They
Yeah.
may think that they don't have nothing to offer their kids. They may
Hmm.
think that they don't have anything to necessarily give to their kids that would benefit them besides money, besides
Yeah.
clothes and material things, which all are important. But you that's also your child is also a part of you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they have traits that come from you, characteristics, just personality traits that come from you, that you have to play a part in shaping and molding, because if going down the wrong path, those traits could be going to waste. Or if not molded the right way, uh those habits and things that they pick up from you could could be wasted. And I
Yeah.
think one of the biggest things that a lot of men, when they start to open up and see that, you do have something to offer your kids, you know, you may think that, oh, well, I didn't do so well growing up, and I'm not the greatest guy, and I don't have the greatest job, and I don't make a lot of money, but
Mhm.
you can now take what you've learned and put it on your kids so that they don't do the same thing, you know.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Yeah. It's always kind of leading with empathy first. I love that that thought process of just try to experience what, or try to think what someone else is experiencing. And like you
Right.
mentioned, you don't have to figure it all out. And it's not this kind of where you're at now isn't a reflection of where you could be in a week, a month, a year. We can all evolve, we can all improve, we can all get better. And I think that's more of the lens that we're trying to come from, right? I think it's really just saying, if you don't have your shit together now as a dad, it's not too late. It's
Right.
rarely ever too late, right? And that too late perspective is very far and few in between compared to all the different kind of scenarios where you can be in your kid's life in some kind of capacity. And that's totally up to the dynamic you have. But I don't think, rarely ever does it seem like it's too late. So if not now, if you haven't already, start. That's more the message, right? If you're not already trying to be the best dad you can be, start now, right? You can always start now. So love to end on that note, man. Really appreciate you being on, Khalil. It was a great conversation, and like I mentioned, looking forward to seeing what you do with your platform and having you back on here, and just continuing the dialogue.
uh, I don't know what the hell happened there. I think that it might have been my fault. But I think I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the hell happened there.
Oh, you might have just lost signal or something. Yeah. Cool.
Uh,
Yeah, we can wrap there, man. Let me hit pause.